we've made the connections of the opposing viewpoints going on during this debate, we're ready to talk about how they came to a compromise or a solution. So, with the Great Compromise, we had the smaller states or the less populated states creating compromise with the larger states or the highly populated states. And that's how they came to a solution. Something similar is happening here, except it's between the free states and the slave states. So let's take a look at the solution. The compromise between free and slave states was that every five enslaved would be counted as three people for both representation and taxation. Okay, so what this is saying is they kind of found a middle ground. So instead of counting every single enslaved person as a whole, they only counted part of them. Okay, so every five enslaved counted as three people. That was their solution. Now, at face value, you would think, well, that's not going to make the free states happy, except look at this part, both representation and taxation. So, the part that the North or the free states got out of this is that those votes that the South was getting for representation, they're also getting extra money to the government from the South. Okay. Now, this solution is called the three-fifths compromise. Not difficult to understand why. Okay, you can see for every five enslaved, they only count as three free people. So that's pretty straightforward there. And what we want to do to help you understand what this means is let's apply the math. As a student in social studies, you might be thinking, okay, that sounds kind of complicated. So let's take a look at a very basic math problem to show how this works. So as I mentioned before, the North is very populated. They have more people than the South. So let's factor that into our equation. So let's just do a basic example with some fake numbers to kind of paint the picture, okay? So it says note the number of enslaved. So if the North has 10, we know the South has way more enslaved. Let's put 50 down for them. And then you would apply the three-fifths rule. So for every five enslaved, they would only get three free people. So this would count as six people. Even though they have 10 enslaved, it would only count as six. And you would do the same thing here. They have 50 enslaved, and that would count as 30 people. Then you add the number of all the free people, which basically means everybody else, and then you would get the total. So the North would still have more people, okay, but the South would have a higher number as a result of this calculation. Okay, and they would not only count this for votes, but these final numbers, these total numbers down here, are what would also count for taxes paid to the government. Okay, so in summary, the solution or the outcome for this debate was the three-fifths compromise. And I want to leave you with a deep thought here, and this is a perfect time to apply some critical thinking. If the government during this time period decided that the enslaved were not people or full human beings, right? They were only counting part of them as a full human being. What fundamental or basic belief or message does this compromise send to its people? So fundamental means important, key, basic, right? It's a rudimentary idea that the government and the country is based on. What belief or message does it send to its people? Okay, so you're going to have time to share that. I want you to pause and think about when your government or your country says, well, we're not going to count you as a whole person, we'll count you as part of a person. What message is that sending?